What if I told you that your exhaustion is not a sign of personal failure, but a symptom of a hidden violence you inflict upon yourself every single day? What if the freedom you think you have, the freedom to hustle, to create, to be your own boss, is actually the most sophisticated prison ever constructed? We live in an era where we are told we can do anything. The slogan of our time is "Yes, we can." It sounds empowering. It sounds like liberation. But the Korean-German philosopher Byung-Chul Han argues that this unlimited positivity is actually a trap. It is destroying your soul, burning out your neurons, and turning you into a zombie of productivity. This isn't just about needing a nap. This is about the fundamental structure of modern existence. You feel like a master of your destiny, yet you are a slave to a master who wields a whip you cannot see because the master is you. You're both the prisoner and the guard. You are not lazy, you are not weak. You are a casualty in a war that has moved from the battlefield to the nervous system. Today, we are dissecting Byung-Chul Han's masterpiece, The Burnout Society, to understand why, despite all our technology and time-saving devices, we are more exhausted, depressed, and anxious than ever before. The chains are gone, but we are running faster than ever. Why? Let's look at your daily reality. You wake up, and before your feet hit the floor, you check your phone. Notifications, emails, updates. The world is demanding your attention, and you feel a subtle, vibrating anxiety that you are already behind. You go to work, or maybe you work from home, and there is no longer a clear distinction between on the clock and off the clock. You might be a freelancer, an entrepreneur, or a creative, operating under the illusion that you are free because you have no boss. But in the absence of a boss, you have internalized the authority. You monitor yourself more strictly than any tyrant ever could. When you do finally sit down to rest, do you actually rest, or do you feel guilty? Do you feel that gnawing sensation that you should be doing something productive? That you could be learning a new language, side hustling, or optimizing your gym routine? This is the agony of the modern subject. You are paralyzed by the infinite possibility of what you could be doing. In this state, relaxation becomes impossible because leisure has been co-opted by the need to self-improve. Even your hobbies are performative, documented on Instagram to prove you are living a full life. This constant pressure creates a specific type of pain. It is not the pain of oppression. Nobody is beating you or locking you up. It is the pain of can. When the operating system of society shifts from you must to you can, the pressure becomes infinite. If you fail, you have no one to blame but yourself. This leads to a profound sense of inadequacy. You look at the screen, scrolling through the highlight reels of others, and you don't see a community. You see a mirror of your own insufficient achievement. This is the relatable nightmare of the 21st century. We are swimming in a sea of positivity, drowning in opportunity, and yet we are gasping for air, suffering from a psychic infarction called burnout. To understand why this is happening, we must dive deep into the core of Han's philosophy. Han argues that we have undergone a paradigm shift. In the past, we lived in what Michel Foucault called the disciplinary society. This was a world defined by negativity, by the word no. It was a world of hospitals, prisons, barracks, and factories. There were walls, borders, and clear rules. The commandment was, you should. If you disobeyed, you were punished. It was repressive, yes, but it was also clearly defined. You knew who the enemy was, you knew where the limit was. When you left the factory, you were done. But we have left the disciplinary society behind. We now inhabit the achievement society. The walls have come down. The office cubicle is now the open-plan workspace or the digital nomad's laptop. The borders have dissolved. The modal verb has changed from should to can. The achievement subject is faster, more productive, and more flexible than the obedient subject ever was. But there is a deadly cost. In a disciplinary society, you suffer from repression. In an achievement society, you suffer from depression. This is the crucial insight. Burnout is the result of a voluntaristic self-exploitation. Han writes that the exploiter is the exploited. When you exploit yourself, it feels like freedom. This makes the exploitation incredibly efficient because there is no resistance. You cannot rebel against yourself. In the past, workers could strike against the boss. But how do you strike against your own ambition? How do you protest against your own desire to be better? You can't. So, you run on the hamster wheel until you collapse. The violence is no longer viral or immunological. It isn't an enemy attacking from the outside. The violence is neuronal. It is internal. It is an implosion of the self. Furthermore, Han discusses the violence of positivity. We tend to think of violence as something destructive and negative, like a blow to the face. But Han warns of a violence that comes from too much. Too much information, too much communication, too much production. This excess of stimuli forces our brains into a state of hyper-attention. We are multitasking constantly, rapidly switching focus. We think this makes us efficient, but Han argues this is a regression. Wild animals use hyper-attention to survive. They must eat while watching for predators. They can never truly immerse themselves. Humans, however, are capable of deep boredom and contemplative attention, which is where true creativity and culture come from. By destroying our capacity for boredom and deep silence, we are destroying our humanity. We are becoming frantic animals, reacting to stimuli, unable to linger, unable to dwell, unable to truly be. So, how do we escape a prison we built ourselves? How do we stop the self-exploitation before it leads to total collapse? We cannot simply return to the disciplinary society. We don't want the old tyrants back. Instead, we must develop new strategies of resistance against our own internal drive for optimization. We need to reclaim the philosophy of the other and the power of the negative. First, you must cultivate the power of not. This is not merely impotence or the inability to act, it is the active decision not to act. Han references Nietzsche, who spoke of the need to not react immediately to a stimulus. In a world that demands instant reaction to every email, text, and trend, the greatest rebellion is to pause. You must train your instincts to resist the impulse to immediately do. Practice the sovereignty of the pause. When you feel the urge to check, to fix, to work, stop. Hold that tension. That space between impulse and action is where your freedom actually lives. If you only have the power to do, but not the power to not do, you are just a machine. Second, you must embrace deep boredom. We treat boredom as a sin, a void that must be filled with content. But Han argues that if sleep is the apogee of physical relaxation, boredom is the apogee of mental relaxation. It is the dream bird that hatches the egg of experience. Stop killing time. Let time feel long. Sit without your phone. Walk without a podcast. Let the silence become oppressive, and then let it become expansive. It is only in this deep, unstimulated state that you can hear your own soul speak, rather than just echoing the noise of the collective. Third, redefine the Sabbath. We have turned weekends into recovery periods just so we can work hard again on Monday. That is not rest. That is pit stop maintenance for the machinery. True rest, or the festive time Han describes, is useless. It serves no purpose. It is not for health. It is not for productivity. It is time spent for its own sake. Play without a goal. Read without trying to learn. Exist without trying to improve. You need to carve out sanctuaries of uselessness in your life. These are the only places where the achievement subject dies and the human being can breathe. Finally, you must recognize that you are not a project to be optimized. You are a subject to be experienced. The demand to be authentic has paradoxically made us all the same. Anxious, self-promoting entrepreneurs of the self. Step off the treadmill. Accept that you have limits. The depression and burnout you feel are your body's way of pulling the emergency brake because you refuse to use the regular brakes. Listen to it. It is a revolt of your biology against the tyranny of your psychology. You are not lazy. You are a victim of a society that has weaponized freedom. But now that you see the chains, you have the power to break them, not by doing more, but by bravely, defiantly doing less. If this analysis sparked a realization in you, if you felt the weight of the achievement society lift even slightly, then you are ready for what comes next. Subscribe to this channel not to consume more content, but to join a community dedicated to deep understanding in a world of shallow distractions. Reclaim your mind, reclaim your time. And remember, sometimes the most profound act of courage is simply to stop.